If you are interested in starting your own podcast, we use Buzzsprout because it is simple and easy to use. Buzzsprout can get your show listed on every major platform while giving you the resources for a great podcast website, audio players that can drop into other websites, detailed analytics to see how people are listening to your podcast, and tools to promote your episodes. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and that is why over 100,000 podcasters are already subscribed to Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Following the link in our episode descriptions lets Buzzsprout know that we sent you. So in return, you will receive a $20 Amazon gift card from Buzzsprout while signing up for a paid plan. Most importantly, every subscription through our link is always appreciated and helps support our show so we can continue delivering the quality content that you guys listen to. That being said, back to the show.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Junkies. Your hosts this evening are Andrew Berger and with him Joseph Zonka. And with that, we're hitting another one of our series, boys and gals. We're hitting the top 10 modern age comic books. If you're new here, welcome. You don't usually do that. Usually Joe will say, "Hi, I'm Joe." But you know what? Kind of feeling it today. We're kind of changing up the recording schedule. But like I said, top 10 modern age books, comic keys. Not necessarily always the coolest. There's some cool books from the modern age we left off, but a lot of these are kind of the ones that you're going to be looking after. Not necessarily just investing, collecting, value, desirability, all of these things. We'll kind of get into it as we start talking. But what's up, Joe? How'd you like the intro?
Yeah, something you left out is that you went to micro wrestling without me.
Yeah, dude. I think they played like a recording of like Bruce Buffer like going ham, and it's just like, I don't know, lizard brained my way into sitting in front of the mic today. I was like, let's rip it.
Yeah, but I love that because that represents what we've been doing lately. I mean, at
Yeah,
least
dude.
you.
I startled the hell out of my dog. He does not like that.
No, but our fans do, and that's why we did it. So, yeah, mostly going off vibes here. We're kind of in a little twilight zone because we're recording at 4 instead of 8 today. So you might get a different version of us, but I'm ready to just get right into it, to be honest, because this is another list. And then I can confidently say we're shaking it up next week. So want to get
Oh,
this one in and have a pretty elaborate pod next episode. But not to take anything away from this one, though. Mind if I just get right into it?
yeah, dude. Set him up. Knock him down.
All righty. So we agreed on our top 8, but the
Yeah.
last two were a little debatable. Kind of the same thing I was saying last time. Just not enough time has transpired for one of these to kind of be so much better than the other. But after talking back and forth, we decided to go Malibu Sun 13 for our number 10, which is the first appearance of Spawn in preview. So kind of cheating here. I really wanted to stay away from variants and stuff like that as much as possible. But the actual cover A of issue 1, which is by definition the first appearance of Spawn, is so heavily printed that it's not as valuable. And this is just such a sick cover, too. So, on top of it being rare, that's why we chose this over Spawn issue 1. And the reason we wanted to get like the character on the list in general is because it was so impactful. So it was hard to find a way to get this on this list, but we kind of agreed on Malibu Sun 13 being the solution. So a lot of image is going to be on this list, interestingly enough, which is fine. But I think kind of more of the modern variants is kind of where things kind of went astray here in the modern age of comics.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And also, just like on this book, too, I mean, the standard is cool. I mean, it's basically the same cover as Spawn 1. It's kind of got like that teal, aquamarine, whatever the hell you want to call it, kind of border around it. It's obviously a bit more scarce. And then in some instances, there's like a negative back cover that was like recalled. It's like an error. So if you have one of those with like the negative back cover, those are even more expensive. And to your point, not really a fan of like the variant stipulation, but once you start getting into modern books, that's kind of where like the higher end stuff is kind of getting, depending on like the merits of the book itself. I mean, we're not just doing a variant cover. If it's a key with a variant, that at least makes a little bit more sense. But like you said, it's the modern age. This stuff hasn't really solidified or shaken out as much as some of them could. And that kind of leads into number 9, which we did have to go back and forth on these. Not exactly my favorite book, but at the same time, it's kind of undeniable in the current landscape of like substantiality, I guess. It's Captain Marvel 17, specifically the second printing. Nobody gives a shit about the first printing. I'll just be candid because it is just like a minor cameo of Kamala Khan, the new Miss Marvel. Obviously, you've seen her on TV or at least in ads for it on TV if you didn't watch it like me. But I mean, there's no denying that the second printing, it has her first cover appearance, first full design of the character because she's also spread across like some Marvel point ones and all this other stuff. So I mean like this is like the book for her if you're into that. And because it is so scarce being a second printing with a variant cover, it does tend to be the book that most collectors are going to want to grab. But I mean there's really not too much to elaborate. It's really basically a first cover and second cameo of the character, but by all accounts this is the book.
There are some other lame stuff that we could have put on there, like Something's Killing the Children saga. And then even some actually good stuff too, like Bane or Carnage, but
Preacher.
Preacher, 100% Preacher. That was the one that we struggled with the most because honestly, I think if that show never came out, that book would be bigger. It's not
I
to
don't
say that
know.
the show was bad at all, but I think they were expecting the whole Preacher universe to kind of take off with that show. And when the show didn't really take off, despite the quality, I'm not saying it's bad, but the show wasn't really like a big mainstream phenomenon like one of the other Image books we're going to talk about later. I feel like it kind of missed like this big comic boom in value. And it's really unfortunate because if you've listened to our episode where we review Preacher, it's one of the best books I think we've ever reviewed. So as far as
Agree.
actual quality, Preacher deserves a mention. But going into number
Agree.
8, one of my favorite books personally on this whole entire list, and for a few good reasons, Batman Beyond issue 1, the first appearance and origin of Batman Beyond. Two main reasons being it was gifted to me by Burger during Christmas in July, but
Dang.
also it's one of my favorite animated comic book shows of all time too. So I
Facts.
mean, between those two things, I love this book. Every Batman collector should love this book, and it's one of the better representations of modern age of comics, even though it's more of a cartoon as opposed to
Yeah.
like more of like a traditional comic. And he's later introduced into like main DC continuity, but it's this version of the character that everybody likes. So that's the important book to have if you're a fan of the character.
Yeah, I mean, you summed it up perfectly. I mean, like, if you grew up around our age, you're approaching your 30s, stuff like that. This was kind of right in your wheelhouse. I mean, while Justice League was coming out, Batman the Animated Series, all that, this came out. This was sweet. I mean, obviously, what Terry was like a teenager in it, so it's like semi more relatable, a little bit of a younger protagonist, and kind of reinventing Batman in a fresh way that people kind of get lost trying to do today. It was like a nice new take on the character that actually like had its own merits. Old Bruce, a lot of things came out of this. And just on the actual book side, it is important to note that you probably want like a director like newsstand copy. If you see a box in the bottom left corner that either says Six Flags or is just blank, I would avoid it. I mean, if you want it just to read it, cool. But if you're looking for something to hold its value, you're going to want newsstand copy or something like that instead. The other ones were a bit more passed out or more promotional than the standard copies.
Good call out from a speculative point, and then also just from a content point. I mean, this is no shade to any of the Robins, but I feel like for being a younger character like a lot of the Robins, he is one of the most relatable Batman characters. And then I think just the whole sci-fi edge to it too kind of gave it a whole new feeling. But let's go to number 7, another Batman
Agree with
book.
you. Yeah, keeping with Batman and keeping with the animated universe, we've got Batman Adventures 12. So, for those of you who don't know, I mean, most of us know if we're seasoned, but Harley Quinn, first appearance of her in a standard comic book. She, like Terry and Batman Beyond, also has like first mainline continuity appearances. They're desirable for hardcore Harley Quinn fans, but I mean, if you just like the character in general, especially her original iteration, this is it. She's on the cover, it's the original look, everything. I mean, and then from a speculative standpoint, I mean, mean, she's been in several movies with Margot Robbie already. I mean, Lady Gaga's going to have a take on it in the new Joker sequel. So, I mean, this book is kind of like DC's Venom in a way. To me, I guess. I don't, it's probably a bit more scarce in all reality, but at the same time, it's like one of those books you're going to see all over the place. They always are going to command pretty solid change for them. Like, I hardly see one for under $300 that doesn't have like ripples or stains on it and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's just like a really good book. A character that I don't see going away. I would go as far as to say she's almost like the fourth pillar of DC at this point. So, kind of taking on almost like a mid 2000s like Deadpool role in a way too. The character's gotten animated TV shows, all kinds of stuff. Girlfriend of the Joker. There's unlimited potential for the book, and I mean, it's just cool if you're into the animated stuff like we were.
Yeah, she does kind of give Deadpool vibes, but in the same breath, I like the character a lot more. Now,
Oh,
there's so
agree.
many different variations of the character nowadays, which is interesting. But it's this version of the character that I really like, the one that appeared first in the animated series before any of the comics. And
Agree.
to your point, even low grade stuff of this is going to be really expensive because it's a kid's book. So if you can find it in high grade, I promise you it's not going to be cheap. It's something that I did make a strong effort for to grab early on in my collecting career. So I don't regret that. Again, a cleaner one might have been nice, but no, I just love this book. And the cover's kind of cool too. I believe that's the first animated Batgirl in title as well, but that's not really the draw of the book. It's Harley Quinn. That's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. But going into number six, another animated character, or at least popular because of animation, in my opinion, Star Wars, The Clone Wars one. And I guess a distinction to make here. A lot of people prefer the newsstand version, but the direct copy goes for a lot of money too.
Ugh.
First app of Ahsoka. I don't
Soka
really
these
have
nuts.
the new Bofa.
New Boba.
But I don't really know a lot about this character to be completely honest with you, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about
She's
it.
like
I was a
Anakin's Padawan, bro.
huge fan of like the first three movies, and that's after that I'm kind of
Yeah.
lost. So it sounds like you might know more than me.
Dude, barely. I mean, I used to be into like the Star Wars, Clone Wars stuff a little bit, and like I like the prequels, especially now comparatively to the new trilogy, which I despise. Kind of killed my Star Wars fandom in general. So ultimately, no Star Wars books make my tingle pingle, or vice versa. But this is like the one. She's basically what, like Padawan or trainee. Basically, she's very tied to Anakin Skywalker before he turns into Darth Vader. She obviously is getting cameo. I think what Rosario Dawson was playing her in like the new TV shows. Fan favorite character, especially if you like the Star Wars Clone Wars stuff, that kind of period of things. Considering you don't really see her much in the actual movies, it's kind of more of like an expanded lore type deal or the television. But a kind of a must if you're like a Star Wars fan. Not, I wouldn't say a must. I mean, nothing's a must other than like the original gang. But if
No,
you're
you're
trying
right,
to make,
because it's bigger than actual issue one of Star
yeah,
Wars, unless you're talking about like that, was it the 35 or 30-cent variant? I forgot which one.
right.
Yeah. But no, you're right. It is probably even more expensive than Boba Fett.
Oh yeah,
And by the way, great character design too. Like I said, I don't really know much about the character, but when I was in New York and in Times Square, everywhere I went last year in April had a bunch of different marketing campaigns for this character. So very marketable.
yeah. With that, pivoting away from Star Wars, heading into kind of also loosely popular due to animation, Edge of Spider-Verse 2. Wow, if I could only go back, dude. Quick story before we tell you exactly what it. No, I'll tell you what it is. First appearance of Spider-Gwen, Gwen Stacy in an alternate universe. It's actually Earth 65, not the main Marvel continuity. First appearance of MJ Watson, who becomes like a Carnage symbiote, like later on in like once they expanded the story. And the first appearance of the Mary Janes. But basically, it's a Spider-Gwen book. I mean, she's on the cover. She's like the hot new thing. Her and Miles, everyone's seen Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse at this point. At first, I was just like, oh, this is a fad. I mean, Joe and I got near mint copies for cover, which was $4 back in the day. We held on to them for a while. They appreciated it a lot. We are like, this is cool and all, but I was like, I don't know if I see it lasting. Let me just trade this for like gas money and a first appearance of Bullseye, which wasn't the worst trade. But at the same time, yes, it was, because this book has held its value and honestly probably surged ever since the movie. So do regret getting rid of it, but at the same time, it's not like one of those books where I'm gonna like force myself to pay the premium to get it back. So it's a really good book, especially like if you are a Spider-Man fan, which I am. But having owned it once, I have like a grudge against paying like 125 times more. So yeah, I mean, great book though. Very cool, very relatively low print run, seeing as how it's the second issue of a tie-in book. But
This book absolutely kills me because I remember going all the way to Battle Creek to get 3 copies because literally nobody in our area in like a 50-mile radius had one in stock the day it came out, unless you were collecting that title for whatever reason. And I got one for Burger, one for Juan, one for myself. And when it got to about $100, I sold my copy as well. To Burger's point, it's just like, what's more popular, Gwen Stacy or some kind of variation of Gwen Stacy? I'm like, I'd rather have the
yeah,
actual first appearance of the character. And
yeah.
honestly, I mean, unless you have like a really minty copy, like this floor matches, if not exceeds, probably the floor of a first app Gwen Stacy, which I find to be really stupid. I think the cover is really ugly and I will not be buying another one. But every time I do see one, it pisses me off because it's always three to $600. And it's just like,
Facts.
why? I mean, I will
Yeah.
say the why is probably the rarity and the popularity, unfortunately. The rarity, though, I will say this, I've been collecting since 2011, and it was the most unique comic experience to date as far as modern collecting goes for me because I've only seen this one other time since I've been collecting where something was like sold out like hotcakes, just like the cover A, no, not a variant or anything like that, just nowhere to be found first day. And that was with Ultimate Spider-Man 1 that came out recently, but
Mm.
that's not even the first appearance of a character. Yeah, it's $100 book right now, but that's one where I feel like I could sell it for 100 because I can't see that going much higher. But I mean I made that mistake before, so I'm gonna hold on for now because I did get a copy for cover just because of the rarity, which isn't really a good way to collect, but I figure every decade or so you can afford to take a
Yeah.
flyer.
And
But yeah, like it was so unique about how nobody had any copies available, and now it's a really expensive book and one of the most important books of the modern age, which just blows my mind.
yeah, and I will say too that if you want to really step it up and really like shell out some ducats, you can go find the Greg Land variant, which I mean, isn't that the dude who usually traces? But either way, it's kind of the more desirable cover to Joe's point. Like the cover A isn't exactly great. So the variant, which is also, I believe, a ratio, is definitely the more sought after book. And also, I will say, I came around to the character too after watching the Spider-Verse movies. I kind of understood more of the hype and understood the lasting presence, but at the same time, I it just hurts so much. Like you said, get pissed off seeing how much they go for and what it would cost to get it back.
100%. It, you know what pisses me off too is I saw that variant. I saw it in the wild when it first came out, and we were in college, and I'm just like, I'm not
Yeah,
spending like $100 on a variant.
yeah.
But
In hindsight, bro,
yeah, in hindsight,
what can you
yeah,
do?
yeah. Anyways, let's move on. I'm sick. So number four being Nick's three. We talked a lot about Edge of Spider-Verse too, so I'll keep this one a little shorter. This is the first app of X-23. So this is one of those books where I honestly feel that it's just super popular and important because everybody likes Wolverine so much.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't really care about X-23.
Yeah, I'm not invested in X-23 at all, but at the same time, I do want this book.
Yeah, like it's a good book, but it's like the character itself is just okay.
Like I like the character and all, but like I just like price to coolness. The ratio is a little off. If this was like $150 book, I'd get it and I'd be like, I feel all right. But like you're paying like $400 for like a raw, like low end. And it's just like, whoa. Like, am I really gonna swing that when like there's so many silver keys? But at the same time, if you're an X-Men fan, I mean, she became Wolverine, and I mean, she was in the Old Man Logan movie, so it's like I feel like the character has a lot of potential still.
Oh yeah, it's gonna stay. And they
Yeah,
can do whatever they want with the character because she's so young in the form of like aging her like they did John Kent or keeping her young and doing stories that way.
yeah,
So a lot of possibilities and a lot of opportunity for the character. And I think it's an important book to buy. I think it's probably a little expensive right now with the whole Deadpool Wolverine stuff. But I
It
mean,
doesn't
if you
change
could,
much.
yeah, but it's always going to be an expensive book. Even when I started collecting, I remember this being an expensive book, and it's
Yeah,
got such a unique cover. I'm not going to say it's bad or it's good, but it's unique.
it's
So
interesting.
it catches your eye. Yeah.
That I mean, like, what the hell is the Knicks series? It's not like it came out in Wolverine or X-Men or even like offset of like an X-Men book. It came out in Knicks issue 3.
Yeah, so that's another reason why this book is always gonna be expensive.
Yeah. And moving on to our next book, though, is another book that's gonna stay expensive for the foreseeable future. Is Invincible issue 1. First appearance of Invincible, Omni-Man, Deborah Grayson, Titan, William Clockwell, his best friend, David Hiles, Adam Eve, Science Dog. There was only just shy of 11,000 copies ordered by retailers. So ain't shit out there, boys. There's reprints, there's variants, there's the Larry's special comic stash or whatever the hell it's called. Like there's one of those that looks just like it, but it's got a bunch of dumb words on the cover. And if you didn't hear, there's like a couple of seasons out of an animated series on Amazon. I'm pretty sure there's a third one in the works. So it's just like, and it's really good. Like Joe started watching it. Y'all heard it here first through him. And then I was just like, whatever, I need something to watch. I watched it. I got hooked. Shit rules. I'd love one. But now those are also like $500 raw minimum. So it's just like, oh, I'm gonna just sit tight and pray and wait. But it's a really cool book. And I mean, Omni-Man's one of the coolest like Superman derivatives that I've come across.
Coolest father figure in comics.
The coolest father figure, best dad.
Best dad.
Best dad. It's just a good book, man. And as you heard, like less than 11,000 were ordered. It's like, how many got destroyed? Where are those?
Yeah, because this is an early 2000s book. I think it even
2003.
yeah, and I don't know. I can't say I know for sure, but I imagine this book was a lot cheaper before the show came out. And because I was collecting before the show came out, it kind of upsets me that I didn't get hip to this earlier, but I guess you don't know until you know, and now the ship has
Yeah,
sailed. So I would still pay a premium for this book, to be honest with you, but I don't see them very often in the wild. And when I see them on eBay, I really don't know what to think because there's so many
right.
variants and I don't know. One day, hopefully, one will find itself in my collection, but gotta love this book. But going into number two, first at Miles Morales, Ultimate Fallout 4,
Yeah.
preferably the newsy, but the direct is fine too. I'm not 100% sure, but I think when this book came out, there was like a polybag version too.
Yep.
Um,
Hmm.
what an amazing character. I mean, the animated movies have really cemented this character's legacy in modern collecting. And unlike some of the books we talked about earlier, this book wasn't really all too expensive up until recently, which is kind of interesting. And
Facts.
and now it's number two on our top 10 list for the modern age of
Makes
comics.
me
So it's
so mad.
interesting, but worth having.
I got a first print for $20 about 8 years ago. Flipped it because I was like, oh, whatever, dude. This is just a flash in the pan. And now, now it'd be, probably about $300 at least. Because I've seen them dip a little bit, but like it's still holding in this couple to few $100 range for a raw. And there's a variant, which we said we don't want to push variants as the main driver here. But if you get that ratio variant that they have, Marco Djurjevic or whatever. Cool cover. Those go for a boatload. There's one up at my LCS, and we're talking several thou. But good book, especially coming out of like a Ultimate Universe type deal and like actually becoming like a lasting character, Afro Latino Spider-Man, Spider-Man for a new age. I mean, we've talked about how many different Spider-Man they make, but this is like the one that like really has stuck and in a meaningful way. Plus, like the movies, the inevitable live action will be coming. I mean, the sky is the roof, dude, or the ceiling is the sky. Either way,
The ceiling
I've
is the
I've
sky. I fuck
I've
with that.
loved that.
I'm gonna start
Yeah,
saying
dude.
that. Um,
Yeah, dude.
this isn't even the most expensive book on the list that we've said so far, but I do think it has the fullest potential.
Facts. And with that, the number one, what you've all been waiting for, The Walking Dead issue 1
Wait, announce
came
it
out.
like you did the intro.
Oh, okay. And now, your number one book, The Walking Dead, issue 1. from 2003. Came out actually the same year as Invincible, or, within a year of each other. Just kind of weird to think about in hindsight that he was just putting out two bangers in the same year and basically everyone slept on it. But obviously, if you don't have cable or like internet or don't talk to many people, like you may not know about The Walking Dead, which is like a cultural phenomenon. Obviously, it kind of tailed off and became dog do because they kind of lost the plot and went too long, I would say. But I mean, to make a global phenomenon kind of like on par with like, how the Turtles are kind of like the media conglomerate of the Copper Age. This is kind of the media conglomerate of the modern age. It spawned movies, TV shows, every type of merchandise you could think of. People who don't like comics know The Walking Dead. I mean, it was on AMC for cable television. First appearance of Rick Grimes, first appearance of Shane Walsh, print run, 7,200 books. There's only 7,200 printed. I mean, that's not much. That's even less than Invincible somehow. And I mean, it became like the biggest thing. So, I mean, I don't see a world where this book doesn't command a ton of money. Raw, beat up, anything. And then imagine just, slab 9/8. I'm sure that the ceilings come down slightly because like the hype is not at its all-time high anymore. But that said, the floor is still immense.
The show definitely took a dookie, basically, once they introduced Negan, even though he's a cool villain. But the supporting cast of like this whole Walking Dead universe is ridiculous. Like Michonne is probably like a $300 book, and Shane's one of my
Yeah.
favorite all-time TV villains. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think so. He was like having sex with his wife, and he wanted to be the dad of his his kid's son.
I want to be
And then
you.
when he came back and they found out he was still alive, he still kept going. It's I just don't know why that's so evil and funny to me. But what a character. And it hit at the perfect time too, because I feel like there was this weird like zombie phenomenon back then with like World War Z and everything. And then like they came
Yeah.
out with the perfect TV show at the perfect time. So you have the show to thank for the quality of this comic, but this comic went on for years and years and years, and he's a good writer to your point. So this will be the number one book of the modern age for as long as I can see, unless they come out with something new that's better, but I doubt it.
Yeah, I mean, not much more I can say to that. I mean, I feel like we've got a pretty solid list here in, retrospect. I feel like these are the big tunas of the modern age. The weird thing is knowing when the modern age ends at this point, seeing as how we've been in the modern age for a good like 30 years.
We didn't mention it, but the copper and the modern age, there's not really like a strong distinction unless you saw anything, Burger. Like, I don't really know what separates the two other than like people say that like copper ended in 91 and modern kind of started in the end of 91 or the beginning of 92. But unlike that
Depends who you
Neil
ask.
Adams book or some of the other books, like, there's not like a book that defines like the transition of the eras, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't even know when our era changes because this is like the longest time period that like hasn't had like a change yet. We've just been modern for a good 30 years. Like, are we gonna go to the plastic age? Like, or we still got some metals to run through? But either way, I mean, we have a fun one for you next time, but I still think that we have gold on the table. So maybe we circle back and finish the series with some Golden Age books at some point, but that's for another time. And, while you're biding your time waiting for us to speak to you yet again, hit us up on Instagram. It's at CBJ Pod. You'll see our logo there. Best way to hit us up. We're sharing a lot of books that we pick up, and we do have a backlog. I'm trying to post like one at a time and really draw it out, but then I realize that I'm getting really backed up because we just keep accumulating more books. So if you want to see cool keys and whatever we've been into, it's all up there. We've got everything else. You want to let us know what's going well, what's going bad. We'd love to hear the feedback. That being said, too, rate, reviewing, subscribing. It's not something that we would die for, but we would absolutely appreciate. Helps more so the algorithm reach new junkies than it makes us smile, I guess. So, you're not really letting us down, but it would certainly help. I'll put it that way. And yeah, I mean, we're on YouTube, everywhere else you find podcasts. Tell a friend, anyone who likes comics or, just really wants something like that's like 30 to 40 minutes or less to listen to because we're got these nice compact episodes for you. But yeah, we've got a special one coming for you, assuming all the logistics work out the way everything is intended. Oh, too, I don't want to be beat around the bush too much. You brought up Christmas in July before in regard to Batman Beyond. If you are new here, that is a yearly tradition We like to spread the good word so that you can celebrate the holiday too with your comic collecting friends, but that is going to be coming up very soon as we approach July. So if you want to hear exactly what surprises we've got each other, any other wrinkles that might have happened this holiday season, make sure you don't miss that one. That said, anything you want to say to our fellow junkies, Joe?
No, that was fun. We talked about doing the golden age or the modern age because we kind of have it all scattered at this point. But I figured the modern age, these books are still kind of attainable for most people. And I mean, they're
Yeah,
expensive, but at least like they're newer. So hopefully this was relevant. Hopefully you guys like the list and look forward to what's to come
absolutely. And with that, we'll go ahead and catch you next time.
later.
Later.